Help me welcome back Julian Schnabel.
Thought it would never end. I thought it was nice to see the paintings in color at the end. Anyway,
You and I have been talking about film for a long time, and the film has been a passion of yours forever. Why this was the first film you directed? What is it about this one that it made you want to become a filmmaker?
well, I've always been a big movie fan. If you're a painter and you tell actors, you tell actors to do things, if you're not the director, they don't listen to you. And if you have ideas about those things, I mean, they might be very, they might be flattered that you like their work or whatever, but they don't necessarily have to listen to you. And I guess there's a part of my brain that is a storyteller, and I never thought I was going to be a movie director. But when Jean-Michel Basquiat died, this guy named Lech Majewski came to interview me about him, and I thought that I would help him get this film made. And I even introduced him to Dennis, and he kind of told Dennis things. Dennis told him things about Andy or whatever. And he had an encyclopedic background of film, but he was a tourist to this world. So I tried to get the movie made for him for a while. I had no idea what that meant to be a movie producer or whatever. I just gave him 50 grand, and I thought he could do some research, and I would help him or introduce him to some different people. And basically, he was a tourist. And so I thought, I'll do it myself. So I never had a camera. I mean, I've never had a photographic camera. Never made films. I figured taking pictures of things were things that other people did. I mean, I would look at things and see them, but I didn't need to photograph them to connect with them. So I basically gave this guy $250,000 to buy back the rights of something that was basically something that I wrote, which was okay to me, and gave a bunch of credits to different people, whatever. But we got the, and what was amazing was that all of these actors, well, I knew them. I knew Dennis and I knew Chris Walken. They all loved painting. I mean, Gary Oldman loved to paint. So they all basically worked for free. And the music, which is incredible. And I mean, there was a Favored Nations deal set up where the Rolling Stones, Van Morrison, everybody, $5,000 for the master, $5,000 for the publishing, which is unheard of. And Keith Richards gave me that, beautiful song, Jane Rose and Keith Richards, of The Nearness of You. But I shot 90,000 feet of film, which is very, very little. I don't know that anybody that was there understood kind of what I was doing. Maybe I didn't either. But once I had it, I just treated it like a found object and made what I thought was a film out of it. John Killick, who worked in the movie business or made other films before, was introduced to me by, was it Keith Addis and Nick Wexler? who did Sex, Lies, and Videotapes. And John had, you were working with Spike already? So you did, She's Gotta Have It? Do the Right Thing. He started with Do the Right Thing with Spike Lee. And basically, he took a chance on a first-time director to go along with me on this ride. And then once I made the movie, it wasn't very difficult to do. I mean, it was very natural for me to do that. Dennis Hopper said it looked like you've been doing it for 40 years. I could basically talk to one person or 500 people relatively with not much of a different, wouldn't affect me that much. I mean, I could kind of do a lot of different things at once. And I guess being a painter, I didn't come to it from a literary place. But the text was pretty damn good, I thought. It's interesting now because it's 2024, and this movie was made in 1995. I thought it seemed pretty relevant at this moment. Jeffrey was amazing, wasn't he? I mean, he really was. And when we made this movie, he and I had a very difficult time together. It was the first film he'd ever been in.
Was it in Angels in America before, right?
Well, he was. He wasn't in a movie.
Yeah, no.
He was on. It was George Wolfe's.
Yeah, the Angels in America. Yeah.
But his voice sounded like Jean-Michel, and I actually put him on a diet and made him look really good. But that's my big thing, putting actors on a diet when I should do it to myself. When I work with them. Anyway, I was very, very privileged to have these incredible actors to work with. And I mean, wasn't Chris great as the interviewer? How about when he just stared at him and he didn't even move? So I've been very privileged to actually, and lucky enough to have these people that actually liked my work or did it because I was an artist.
It's interesting because the film feels like a family album on two levels. On one is, is your friends in the actors and the people that made it, and the other one is this artist community of the, the 80s. Can you talk a little bit about portraying that?
Well, I think one of the big problems with movie making is people don't know their topic. They may have the skill to direct things or move a camera, but they don't know. They're not necessarily connected to that. And I was a witness and a participant to most of those things. I'm the guy that gave Jean-Michel the $3,000 for the caviar. And it was funny also because Roberta Smith wrote that Andy Warhol painting wasn't real. And she had to retract that statement because it is a real Andy Warhol painting of me that happened to be in the room in the background when they were painting. It's funny because Gary, my son, was sitting next to me, shooter, and he was saying, "God, he's just like you." I mean, we don't really look like each other or anything, but he's kind of like a Rinpoche. He could turn himself into anything. And I'm so happy that Gary got some respect finally, because he had a very bumpy road, and he's brilliant. I think he's
the
best of the best. I mean, I've had the privilege of working with the best of the best. I mean, whether it was Gary, whether it was Javier Bardem, Matthew Almeric, Oscar Isaac just now in this last movie we made. Actually, Al Pacino and Marty Scorsese are in this new film that we made with Oscar. And Gerard Butler gives the performance of his life. You won't even recognize him. I mean, you've never seen this guy as that guy.
Do you enjoy working with actors? Because obviously you have an instinct for spotting them, and they obviously want to work with you.
Well, it was Javier Bardem's first movie, Before Night Falls, in the United States, and who wanted to make a movie about a gay Cuban poet. I mean, nobody. So I had to borrow some money from a friend of mine to pay for it, and then, but he was amazing. And same thing with Matthew Almeric when he played in
Diving Bell.
The Diving Bell and the Butterfly. First, Kathy Kennedy. Well, first of all, there was a script that was written by Ron Harwood, and they wanted Tom Hanks to play Jean-Dominique Bauby or something like that, and then they gave it to Johnny Depp, and Johnny said, well, if Julian Schnabel will direct it, I'll do it. So they asked me if I wanted to do it, and then Johnny got involved with the pirate stuff, and they thought because we were friends, I would talk him into doing it, but I didn't do that. And then I thought Matthew Almeric, who I had seen in Olivier Assayas's movies, and I'd seen his movies, was the right guy. And Kathy Kennedy said, I want you to meet Eric Bana, who's a great actor. I mean, he was certainly great in Chopper. I mean, great. So anyway, I met him at Four Seasons because I said, there's a guy, I had told her, he says, well, he went to the bathroom and says, well, there's this French guy that was in Munich. His name is Matthew Almeric. Well, I told her that we should have Matthew Almeric play this role before. And when she said it to me, I said, that's great. That's exactly the right guy. But I've just, do I like, making the work with people is vale la pena, the meetings, financiers. I mean, people, I can tell you that it's not a business. For me, it's not a business. I don't make movies to make money.
This was completely independent when you.
It was $3,600,000. I put $1.2 million in, and Peter Brandt and his cousin Joe put the other 2/3 in, and I guaranteed the thing with paintings. They got their money back. I kept the paintings, made the movie. But it was, I mean, to see David now, I mean, really to see David and to see Dennis, and there's so many people that are not with us, but they're with us. My parents, those are my parents. And my parents are in, like Marty, that's a good thing. My parents are in, they were even in Before Night Falls. They were even in The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, but they were dead. So they were on the wall in Jean-Dominique Bauby's room. There was a picture of my father when he had the coffee shop at the Raleigh Hotel in the Catskill Mountains. And whatever. What am I talking about? Anyway, what else would you like to know?
The paintings, the estate, the Basquiat estate did not allow you to use the art.
Right.
So you painted yourself?
Yeah, I painted all the paintings with Greg Bogan. The two of us did that, and it didn't take very long either. I mean, it was much more difficult for him to think them up than for me to make a version of them. But they're pretty damn good. There's even better ones that are not in the movie. But we've never shown them. And maybe that would be an interesting thing to do, to show the paintings. Because I have made paintings of Picasso's paintings and other people's paintings, so why not? But it takes about 50 years to rethink that shit. Yes?
Yes. You raise your hand if you want. I have one more question, and then I'll open to the public.
She's amazing. You're so lucky to have this woman in this town. I mean, really. And I got to tell you, Alberto Barbera is lucky to have her in Venice. And it's so important. I mean, there's a couple of people in this world that are really connectors, that they just do it for the love of film, and they have this moral responsibility to themselves that is just doing it is what I'm sure makes this woman happy, because and that somebody that's not making a film. I mean, I've never seen any of the movies that you made, but maybe you'll show them to me someday. But to compartir en este sentido es muy fuerte, and it's So I really appreciate
Thank
you,
you.
and that's why I wanted to show the movies here. And I think what you did with the cinema
It's amazing.
is
Yeah.
great. So whoever helped out with that, and you're in the room,
Everybody helped out. It's
congratulations.
just really, it was,
It
it
was
was
a
a,
nice screening, you know. I mean, I haven't seen this movie with people actually. I mean, because it was in color when that, and then I was doing the remastering, but obviously we're not with an audience. And it's interesting when you see which lines land a certain way, what things people think are funny, and I wasn't embarrassed.
I have one question before I open it. I was watching the movie the other day, and I did not remember how much of it is about the relationship between Basquiat and Warhol. Why was that relationship important, you think, and what did you want to say through the film?
Well, what's really interesting about it's interesting that you bring that up because I met somebody in Paris somewhere at one time that absolutely thought that that was just made up. And the one thing that I did know, I knew Andy pretty well, and I knew Jean Michel, and I was around Bruno Bischofberger also. When they worked together, I mean, Bruno had this idea that I would actually work with Andy and with Jean Michel, and I didn't want to do it. And then Francesco Clemente fit together more into that configuration, but then after a while, Francesco, they made some paintings, and it was just Jean Michel and Andy. And Bob Colacello sitting in the audience. I mean, I was the only person that bought a painting from the show that Andy made with Jean Michel. That mobile gas thing was the painting that I actually ended up with. That then Johnny Versace had, and I don't know where it is now, but because people didn't know, am I buying a Warhol or am I getting a Basquiat? You know, and they get confused when they're thinking about products. Um, did you ask me a question?
Yes, I did. And you're right. Why was important the
Oh,
relationship
I
between
mean,
two
I
of them?
would. In fact, I was walking on Union Square, and they didn't usually paint in the room where your office used to be, Bob. But I mean, yeah. But some reason I was walking up Union Square, and the two of them were walking around up there, and I saw them in the window at night one time. I mean, it was. I mean, Andy really loved Jean Michel. He really, really loved Jean Michel. And I think it was devastating for Jean when Andy died. And uh, so it wasn't these things that happen sort of like growing up in public. I mean, that conversation that Gary has with Jeffrey there about these articles. And I mean, it's amazing how brutal and how insensitive and cruel people can. I mean, Robert Hughes is not here with us anymore, but he was a real fucking bum. I mean, and he didn't know anything. I mean, he was very, very smart. I think The Fatal Shore was a good book, but I mean, if you think of all the art that he actually was supporting, tell me one of their names. Is there anybody in this audience that could tell me one artist that Robert Hughes was a proponent of? There must be somebody. You know why? Because he didn't know what? Rauschenberg. I mean, we didn't need Robert Hughes to pick Bob Rauschenberg. Everybody knew about Bob Rauschenberg before Robert Hughes came from Australia. We all knew about Robert Rauschenberg. He didn't need him for that. But anyway. There you go, Frank Alba. Never heard of him.
Okay. So raise your hand. We have time for a few questions. There is Andrea in the back there.
God bless Frank Alba.
I just want to say yes to black and white. Such a revelation to see this film without color. Also, I love what I think are references to experimental cinema, like New American Cinema. There are moments throughout where it's sort of a grainy Super 8 or 16 millimeter home movie kind of quality and rhythm.
That was a home movie.
Yeah.
By Michael Holman and Vincent Gallo. That was Vincent Gallo jumping up and down. anyway, and here they were all in the band Gray.
Yeah, with Michael Holman.
Yeah.
I just think that you make films like a painter. Like you make films like you see. And that's sort of a revelation. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you.
Hold on for the microphone because we
Okay.
so we can all hear.
Hey, thank you, for screening that here. Just to get your insight from watching that movie when you first produced it in the 90s to watching it again in 2024, what do you think one of the main things that you see now that you maybe didn't see when you watched in the 90s?
I think I enjoyed it more right now. I mean, with some distance, and like I said, for a while, I mean, Jeffrey, it was his first movie, and he, I don't know if he really understood my relationship with Jean-Michel. So he kind of, had one thing that he was thinking, and wasn't necessarily the way it was between Jean-Michel and me. And so things would come out sometimes, and I'd have to sort of use whatever that was and let things happen a certain way. And ultimately, it turned out to be, for example, when the scene is jump cut together when he's on the suicide hotline with Joe Glasgow saying French, Haitian, and they're talking, he says, my boyfriend left, been there, that whole kind of thing that later gets chopped up and put into the song. It took Jeffrey 40 seconds to take a towel off of his shoulder, 40 seconds to do 40 seconds is a long time. And so there was enough time in there to actually jump cut it together to where he wasn't saying anything, where we could just see these different expressions on his face and have the text. And what was happening is we, at a moment, Benicio and I knew each other. And there was one moment where Jeffrey said to me, how come you always listen to him and you never listen to me? I said, tell me something I don't know, Jeffrey, and I'll listen to you. And so, we had kind of butt heads sometimes. And I said, okay, we were in the cafeteria at the Sister Saint of whatever that place was. And I said, I had a little DAT recording. I said, can you just do these lines like, hello, my name's Joe. What's your Jean-Michel? And they did all that in the cafeteria. And then later I put it on the scene. And there was another moment when they were saying things in the car, and they were in the back of the taxi cab. And Jeffrey was saying something, but I could hear it in the cans. So I said, okay, you don't need a director. I'll get out. And I got out of the camera car and let them drive around without me there. He said, what do you mean? What are you going to do? I said, just drive around if you want. You don't need a director. But I already had it, the scene. And there was a kind of, God knows what was happening to Jeffrey. This was the first film he was ever in, and dealing with me. And ultimately, it worked out to be something beautiful. And now that it's, 30 years later? I talked to Jeffrey earlier on the phone today, and it's the great thing about seeing this movie now, I mean, we both grew up and we didn't end up in jail or kill anybody. And he's really delightful, and we had a chance to actually grow up, really, and for him to see what he was doing there and what we were doing. I got a chance to see what I was doing too. But I'm very much in the present. There's not and things happen spontaneously, and I think I'm prepared, but I'm always ready for the accident. I mean, for example, the sound person said, he can't walk in those clogs. With the sound, we're going to hear the clogs when we want to cut. I said, he's not going to walk over there in his bare feet, and then or the clogs, and the clogs are going to be in the sound. I mean, that's what's going to happen, and or sometimes somebody will say to me, assistant director, like when we were making The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, there was a telephone call that was going to be made between the woman who was translating for Jean-Dominique Bauby and his father. And so his father was played by Max von Sydow, who was an amazing man. It was a privilege to know this guy. He was great. Anyway, so the assistant director said, well, I'll be on the telephone call and I'll just talk to Anne Cosini, and then she could... I said, not on my movie, you're not going to do that. I mean, you think she's going to react to the way you're talking to her the same way that she would have Max von Sydow if his father's talking to her? I don't. So that isn't going to happen. So in general, I guess when Andrea was saying that about being a painter, I mean, making things is something that I guess I'm used to doing. For example, when we made Before Night Falls, the art department was, I don't know, in another town. And we were shooting the scene where young Reynaldo, who played by my son Vito, walks across the street to a movie theater, and then they go to a whorehouse. He was 12, you're 11, shooter. And so there was nothing there. I put a poster that said Shane on a wall that looked like it could be the entrance to a movie theater. And across the street, there was a building that was boarded up, put a red light behind one of the boards that was there, and painted with a cherry picker Euphrasia's, the name of the bar, on the cement, and we had a scene. Instead of, sometimes if you write something and you don't have everything that's supposed to be there, maybe the director will say, well, we can't continue. But it's all an experiment. I mean, shoot the rehearsal is my motto.
I want to follow up. Sorry.
Go on, I'm sorry.
I want to follow up on Andreas and what you're talking about being a painter. And it's such there is a...
Anybody want to leave, you can leave. I mean, or I can stop talking also. Really? I mean, yes, you want to leave? What do you want to say, shooter? Okay.
Hold on
Here,
for
wait,
the
the
mic.
microphone's coming to you.
How'd you make it so emotional?
I mean, come on. I am extremely proud of you.
Thank you.
You are super smart and direct. How did I make it so emotional? That's a great question. I mean, you deal with your feelings, and when you feel like when you feel like it's real, you believe it. And I wanted the audience to believe it. And so Gary once said when they were making Nil by Mouth, he walked in and said, it smells like acting going on here. We don't do any acting in these movies. People go through these things, they react to what's happening, and they inhabit these characters. And I was astounded. It's funny that you say that, because I really felt Jeffrey in such an emotional way in this particular. And what was good about seeing it now is I forgot about whatever stuff happened before, and I could really look at it more objectively. And I was I like just being a viewer and not being the author. Just sort of, we're all in the same boat. But thank you I thought it was really, really emotional. I mean, and I think that the emotion is the key to the film. I mean, when he goes into the bathroom and he starts picking on his face, and you hear Tom Waits singing "Who Are You This Time," and the music is kind of like it's the dialogue also. When you hear Wall sing Matilda, and he's watching the TV. When we made this film, Tom, what was his name? Who ran MTV? Tom.
Pittman.
Preston.
No, Preston.
Tom Preston. Okay, Tom Preston. So basically, and PJ. Okay, so Lee, Janet Lee. Well, no. Peggy. So Peggy Lee singing "Is That All There Is?" Okay, and then they wanted to do the deal. So the people at Island Records got PJ Harvey to sing "Is That All There Is." It's not in the movie, but it's on the record. And she was going to put out the record on MTV with her singing, and she put her face on the TV instead of Andy when he's crying, looking at Andy. And I said to Tom Freston, I don't want you to play the song on MTV. He said to me, you're the only person in the history of MTV that ever asked me not to play something. It wasn't right. It wasn't, I didn't believe it. And so it's important for artists to protect their work, not compromise what they're doing. And, I'd rather make less money and make the movie that I want to make than, if you ask me if I wanted to make, say, Before Night Falls or Gladiator, no question, I'd rather make Gladiator. No, I'm kidding. I'd rather make Before Night Falls. And there's, yes. That was a great question, Shooter.
Picking up on...
What do you say?
Whoops.
You're going to paint more. Great. Then this movie was good for something. Talented painter, too. Yes.
Picking up on Shooter's question, there was a very emotional moment for me with the old footage of the bird consuming the other birds. Frog, rather. Right. And it was extremely emotional, especially where it was, but it was also familiar to me, and I couldn't place what was that?
It's French stop-action film from the 20s or something like that.
It wasn't a Méliès.
Yeah.
It was a Méliès. Okay. Yeah. Okay. It really worked.
I think we have time.
Well, it's a weird scene. No, it's kind of a weird scene because he's saying all this stuff to her or whatever, and she's really pissed off. But it's nice when the stork swallows the frog and you think she's fucked.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's heartbreaking, actually. And,
Benicio del Toro was incredible, isn't he? I mean, he actually won the new Spirit, what is it called? Independent Spirit Award for Best Actor for that performance. I mean, the fact is, Joanna Ray, who did the casting, didn't know that Jean-Michel was black. She thought he was half Puerto Rican, and she sent me this footage of this guy. He was sitting at a table in the drug wars, and he didn't even move, and everybody else disappeared. I said, well, that guy is great, but he's the wrong color. But I'd like to meet him. And then we met, and we became friends, and he's extraordinary. In fact, Benicio was supposed to be Reynaldo Arenas in Before Night Falls, but things got a little complicated, and then he didn't. But we've been promising each other if I ever make another movie, we'd do it. I tried, I wanted him to play Louis in this film that we just did, but he was busy working with Wes Anderson, and for the best, because Gerard Butler played a role you won't recognize him as the guy who is this assassin, and he also plays Pope Boniface VIII in the 14th century and this assassin in the 21st century. Somebody saw the movie and they thought he was Ray Winstone or something, but I mean, it's an amazing, wait till you see this. I don't know when it's going to come out, but the last movie we made is Vale la pena. It was worth the trouble. Anyway, and John is a producer of that one also. Yes, a question? Yes, this man with an arm?
Yeah,
Hi. I just want to say it was really an incredible experience being here and being with you. I'm from Scotland, so I'm excited to be here, and I actually live in Sag Harbor. I really love Basquiat, and it's a film that for some reason I'd never seen, and today I was dropping someone off to the bus and I thought, oh, there's Basquiat. And Julian Schnabel's talking. Wow, I better go. So I came a little bit late and we were all standing waiting to get in. And then people were like, what's going to happen? Are we going to get in? Anyway, we all got in, which was amazing. And I just wanted to say that I'm glad I waited to see the film and to, have you be here talking to us. And it was incredibly emotional and so many emotional moments, but particularly when he went to try and get his mother back.
Oh, yeah.
Could you talk about that?
Well, I think everybody's going to have to go home. We have to go home and take care of our 2.5-year-old daughter, don't we?
Yeah.
Soon, in a few minutes. That's amazing when he goes to that's Joey Ganascoli who's playing the policeman, and he played the gay gangster in The Sopranos later. But this was before he ever did that. And Benicio actually introduced me to him, and he's a great actor. He's great. And also, it's funny because, I never made a movie before, and you couldn't really back up or push in. And I just wanted to change lenses radically from one that was very close to one that was further away. And Ron Fortunato, who was the DP, was trying to protect me from hurting myself. But we ended up, I wasn't also trying to invent the wheel. I mean, I just wanted to tell the story. But somehow now in retrospect, looking back at it, the fact that it's very still until it's moving, there's a syntax to it that maybe I noticed more now. I enjoyed watching it. I mean, it wasn't like, oh, I'm going to go see this thing that I made, and I'm going to. Yes.
The very last one.
I have a comment and a question. The comment is that I think the film is even stronger in black and white, and I know why that's the case for me. I always say that the universe was created to prevent artists from getting their work done, and I think this film is the one film that understands that and that bodies that forth. And I really appreciate that, because so many films about writers and artists have no concept of what it is to write and to make paintings or even to make films. And this is the one for me. My question has to do with Basquiat. I made a very short film with a woman who had Basquiat in 6th grade in Brooklyn. And she was quoting him. And at first she misquoted him as saying, I want to be a great cartoonist. And then she corrected herself and said, no, he said, I'm going to be a great cartoonist. And I know John Lurie has said that Basquiat always lived inside of his muse. And so it leads me to want to ask you, did you ever encounter him questioning his own abilities as a painter? Did that ever happen? Did you ever see doubt in Basquiat?
Well, no, because he didn't want to show me that side of himself. But I've been in his studio before where I looked at something and I said, and it was even, and it was, if I would do it, and then he said to me, yeah, but this is my version. And I thought that particular sentence, "this is my version," was very profound. We all have our version in a way, but the fact that, I thought that was like he just said to me, "How did you get feeling?" And that to say something like, "This is my version," and you think of, when he says, "Do you ask Miles where do you get that note from?" But so I think that there is, maybe the reason why I make movies is because I like to open the lid. Exactly what you're talking about is a big compliment to me, and what I think is actually true. And in this, in each, you try to, and I don't think that people really understand it's the process of being an artist, and maybe through these different films. Jean Dominique Bobby didn't really become an artist until he was paralyzed, and then he had to find some other tool inside of himself that he could turn into who he really was. And what was really crazy about that is that I have claustrophobia, I used to read to Fred Hughes when he had MS and he was in his room. And Darren McCormick gave me the book, The Diving Bell and the Butterfly, because I used to go and read to Fred. He was his nurse. And I thought the most terrifying thing in the world would be to be stuck inside of your own body. And I mean, that was the worst thing I could imagine. But Jean-Dominique Bauby told Bernard Chapuis, who was a writer, who was a friend of his, that if he had the choice to have that happen to him again, or just be a regular person, he would have done it. He would have taken that because he became, I'm somebody else. So that process, I can't wait for you to see In the Hand of Dante. It is.
It's a new film.
It's going to come out in a while, but it's done, and basically, in that film, Nick Tosh, who wrote the book In the Hand of Dante, doesn't know that he is actually the reincarnation of Dante Alighieri. I could say that about Nick. He wouldn't say that about himself. But somehow my interpretation of the book lent itself to that. So he is Dante and he is Nick. So it takes place in the 14th century and in the 21st century. But what you're saying about people always preventing you from making art is absolutely true. It's like somebody will say, hey, I'll give you $5 million if you'll go and make Before Night Falls in Canada. Or I will, or there are people, they want to help you, but they don't really, not really help. People keep it, but I don't think it's intentional. It's just not in their brain pan. It's not in their, what's the word people say? Their wheelhouse? That's a term people use these days. And so they don't know what they're doing. And you have to deal with a lot of stupidity and a lot of ignorance. And it's great when people can actually be supportive and be open enough to a surprise. And that's really what it's about. Chris Walken once said to me, if you can't surprise yourself, how do you expect to surprise anybody else? So, it was good.
This is all we have time off here. There is Julian has been generous. There is a little show upstairs. I don't know if you all fit in, but if you don't make it up on the third floor today, please come and see it another time. It's some
There's
film
photographs.
related thing.
There are photographs, stills from the movie upstairs that are blown up, and there's also some of the posters from the other movies. And and there's a very nice drawing in the stairwell. I made on top of a still a photo from Before Night Falls, where Johnny Depp and Javier Bardem are with each other, and it says it's sort of like a gay manifesto. It says, "Sir Norman was here last night." Norman Rosenthal. Anyway, thank you
for
coming.
coming, Julian. Thank you so much.